This episode of the Dino and Ashley podcast brought to you by Sweatpants.
New sweatpants. And Dino got a new
sweatpants
tank top.
New tank tops. I did not buy this. Ashley bought it for me.
It came in a 3-pack.
You're on the podcast with
Dino and Ashley. Dino has a new tank top. If you're not watching the video and you didn't even know that was an option, you probably should just turn it on.
Yeah, I think the video is probably more entertaining. I do. I wouldn't know. I've never watched the video. I only do that. Is it weird that we listen to our own podcast?
No,
it's not weird.
Awesome.
You should be doing that, right?
Yeah, like because we can critique ourselves, be like, oh, we shouldn't say that.
More often than not, I don't critique myself. I get convicted by my...
Yeah, you're like, man,
dang it.
It's preaching.
I said that, therefore I should probably do that.
Yes,
huh?
yes.
Did you? Yeah, that's recording, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I should probably do those things.
Yeah. And, sometimes you just need a new tank top refresh in your life.
I feel like...
Just to brighten your day.
I didn't ask for it. I didn't see any problem with my other situation, which means you didn't probably... You're ready for a refresh.
Well, as soon as he put them on, too, I was like, I don't...
You bought it for me.
I know. They're a little tight, and they're a little like my tank tops, how they get thinner at the top. But then the boys came out, and they're like, oh, dang, Dad, you look so good.
They were gassing me up.
Yeah.
They were.
They're like, no, you got to keep those.
Yeah.
It looks so good. Yeah. You look so big. So now Dino's all strutting at them. These are the updated version of the yellow tank top. They're like a little bit of a stringer.
That still lives. Gavin still has it. Big Gavin does.
He does, yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah. How was your week, Ashley?
My week was really, really lovely. How was yours, Dino?
Like, we don't talk about each other. It's like, I haven't seen you this week.
You said you had a hot take.
Crap. The 4 pillars? That's less than a hot take. No.
You said you had a hot take. You were sitting outside on the deck, and you started talking about that. You're like, man, I got a hot take about this.
But then you wrote it down, and you said you were going to text it to me, but you didn't.
Well, I think it could actually be a whole podcast.
What are we doing here?
I think the tank tops were the hot take today.
Okay.
I think we should go right into your 4 pillars.
I probably should have written them down, and that's why I actually sent them to you in the middle of the night.
But our phones are connected to the cameras.
I know. All right, so here's my podcast episode topic, okay? It starts with a fun story.
Let's go.
There's nothing funner than me on a rant, on a ramble to get the podcast kicked off, right?
This is the problem.
You had to actually deep breathe deep, like,
do you remember
sigh audibly.
when we first got married, and I think I would tell you that your stories were too long.
When we first got married, you literally said that yesterday.
Because the problem is you go back too far.
All right, I won't go back too far.
You're like, I need to give some color to this story.
All right. When I was 3 years old, all right, when I was in Bible college, Britt Merritt came. This is super quick version.
He's a pastor.
He was a pastor. He was a pastor. He was actually a professor at the Bible college when I was there at 18, 19 years old. This was obviously a very long time ago, like 25 years ago. But he came and he had a special session that was like on a Saturday night or something like that, and we never had chapel that day. And it was optional, and it was on dating. And the whole campus showed up, like to the optional.
They did.
Exactly. Everybody was like, what? And he talked a whole bunch about dating. I don't remember much of it, but the one thing that he actually...
It was super impactful.
It was very impactful. But the one thing that actually stuck with me was, he was like, look, when you're looking for a spouse, you should, generally speaking, try and sit on a 4-legged stool. Okay? You can do a 3-legged stool if you have to.
Well, look what happens. You can fall over.
This is why you need to watch it on YouTube and not...
There's literally a 3-legged stool here.
It is. But a 4-legged stool is ideal because it's harder to tip over. A 3-legged works, but a 2 is going to be struggle and fall over, right?
And we all know one.
Same one. That's
not going to happen. Right? What are we doing?
The 4 pillars that he threw out that I thought were really profound, I think these are his 4. If not, they're mine now. And then I'm going to butcher what he said. What's going to be funny is if Britt Merrick ends up like listening to one of these one time, because somebody's going to be like, hey, Britt, they were talking about you on this thing. And I'm going to say this and he's going to be like, I never said that, any of this stuff. So I'm just making it up,
Perfect. It's good info.
What's funny is actually one of our good friends are actually very close with Britt and his wife. So I like know him by anyways,
him
total
by not knowing him.
This is the problem with my stories, as well as I may or may not tangent all over the place. The 4 pillars.
I mean, we're entertained,
right?
Okay.
Well, I entertain you. I don't know about everybody else. Yeah. I actually have them written down right here magically.
I just want to let you guys know that we had to pause the podcast
What are you talking
for about
about?
10 minutes because Dino couldn't remember the 4 pillars.
No.
And then he was trying to remember them and then he'd forget and then I'd start laughing.
This didn't happen. Here are the four pillars: spiritual, friendship, physical, and intellectual. Okay. Yeah. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because recently I've been coaching a guy and going back and forth with him on it. And this kind of came up in my mind while I was talking with him, because I started to assess this buddy of mine's kind of relationship. And I'm like, okay, where are you at on each one of these pillars? Without thinking about the pillars, I just kind of instinctually started talking to him about it, because it felt like there was, in general, just a lack of ability for him and his wife to really connect. And I started to try and understand, okay, well, what's going on? Where's the disconnect in all this? And my main encouragement at the end of the night was to basically go hard on the things that are that you have an ability to connect on, right? Yeah. So if you know that you really like to have a lot of fun together, and right now you're not having a lot of fun together, like that friendship aspect of it, like go hard on that. Go really hard on the things you know that you have strengths in your marriage, right?
So you're saying too, like with these 4 pillars, that this is something, if you're dating, that this is something that you should in general look for in the other person.
100%, because you're going to have a natural stat connection with another person. You and I have basically a 10, in my opinion, on our friendship. We just instinctually, when we met each other, we just were very, very close on a friendship level. But some people aren't necessarily best of friends. That stat of their relationship, that didn't kick off. So I think there's 2 aspects of this that I want to talk about. One is to a person that hasn't been married yet and is looking for what attributes in their spouse that they would kind of want to look at. And I think this is an important lens to look at and assess by. And then there's a second part of it in that I'm already married. How do I look at this now that I've already, the stats are the stats.
Yeah.
I do not believe that the stats are immutable, meaning they don't change. I think that you can cultivate those things. And I think that that's kind of what I wanted to base the podcast on.
Yeah.
Is the second part of that too.
Yeah.
So the first part of it is, like I had said, when looking for attributes in a spouse, you want to try and maximize all of these general things,
Yeah. So typically I would say, when people are dating, the first one is probably that you're like physically attracted. That's like the first
That's
thing.
Always going to be a natural tendency. Yeah, I think, right. And it's an important attribute, obviously. Right. You want to be that person, be someone that you have a natural physical inclination towards, right? Because you don't want something else to be a distraction visually, because you have a natural inclination. But at the same time, this is a farce in that. All right, so I'm gonna tell another interesting story, and it was based on a podcast, or it was based on a question that somebody asked you on your Instagram one time that you and I were going back and forth on, and it's plagued me ever since. This woman wrote, and she said, "Hey, I'm uncertain how to handle my situation. I feel like I'm married. I've been married for a few years. My husband courted me nonstop all through high school, and I was not interested at all. And eventually, I just was like, all right." There's nothing necessarily better. It's an option. I'm going to go with this. And then started dating. And then kind of felt themselves reluctantly dating for a duration. And then they were like, well, there's nothing else. I'll move to the next step. And this is, again, the story they were kind of communicating to us from their perspective. And then they said, hey, now I'm married, but part of me feels like, man, I never should have been married to this person in the first place. And this is a lie. This is a lie from the devil. And what it is actually, I was listening to Albert Mohler this week, and he was talking about something similar in that this is a form of pornography, because what you're doing is you're allowing your mind to imagine a world that is not real in an emotional way. And right, like in your mind, you're allowing your mind to go somewhere else and say, hey, Mohler was using it with the example of, oh, I have this issue where I fantasize about what my life would be like if I didn't marry my spouse and I had married someone else. And so he was saying like, that is never okay. That is pornography. You're allowing your mind to sit and dwell and meditate on a scenario that is not real and not true. Back to this story of this girl, I wish that in the moment, because we were asked that question, I believe on a live or something like that. And it's plagued me because my response, I have a good response for it now and I didn't then. And my response now is like, you are creating a narrative in your mind that is a lie. And you're allowing your mind to meditate on something that is a lie. And you can alternatively allow your mind to meditate on something that's actually the truth, which is, this is now your flesh. You have made a decision. You are married and this is now your flesh. Therefore, their physical aspects and their physical attributes are the attributes you've chosen. Therefore, those are the most amazing attributes in this world.
Yeah.
I am physically attracted to this version of you at all times. And that is the story I will constantly tell myself, because I believe that's what we're called to do.
Yeah.
When you get married, physically, you are the definition of beauty from here forward.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
You're creating like the standard in your mind.
Exactly.
And it is your spouse.
Yes. Before you're married, you do all this like comparative, analysis. Like, do I like this or do I like that? But once you get married, that is done. You don't get to think that way anymore.
Yeah.
And so in terms of just the one attribute that we're talking about, like the 4 different pillars, the physical attribute is very important before you get married to try and maximize it. And after you get married, it is important then to make sure that I only look at you and think about you in a physical way that is, you are beautiful. You are absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
In whatever state you are in, and whatever's going on in my life, you are the definition of visual and physical beauty to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked about this before in, our thoughts control our words control our actions and the things that we want to dwell on. And we can choose to sit with the mindset of, I adore my husband. I adore this about him. I love his physique. And I love, instead of finding the things that irritate us or bother us about them, keeping our thoughts captive, holding them captive, and dwelling and focusing on the attributes that we love.
Absolutely.
And that's everything about them. Yeah. I love this about Dino.
Yeah. Just from a physical perspective, I have modified my taste based on who you are on a consistent basis, And I always joke with you about this, but when you were pregnant, like massively huge, I was very...
Massively huge. So big.
Huge. You gained quite a few pounds with Gabriel, just saying.
I did.
I had
just cut my hair so short too. It was in the Meg Ryan phase of You've Got Mail. And I was like, this is a great idea. I'm going to do this and I'm going to chop my hair off.
I'm going to be pregnant and huge. You know what I should do? Chop my hair off.
No, I cut my hair before I got pregnant.
Oh, got it.
And then then like a week later, I found out I was pregnant. And it was the worst. And I've always been relatively thinner with a fast metabolism my entire life. So I thought in my head that I had to go and eat all the food. I have another baby. I have to eat.
You're providing calories.
Yes. Well, let me tell you what my doctor said to me at the time. I left him after this, just so you know. But I worked at a hair salon. He knew the owner of the hair salon, and the hair salon was around a bunch of restaurants. And I went in to get like my checkup. It's like 15 weeks or something. And he's like, he just says nothing to me except for,
you just stepped off the scale.
After I stepped off the scale. And he's like, so what is it? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, what is it? Is it the bagels? Is it the
There was a bagel shop right next to
the cookie shop next door? The tacos. Are you eating tacos from the taco place? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you've gained a lot of weight.
You actually, I believe he actually said to you, you weren't even through your first trimester yet. And he's like,
you hit the limit.
You've already hit your limit. For what you're supposed to have gained. But back to the point of the story is that I'm into it. You know what I'm saying? No matter what phase you've ever been in, I just have a desire to meditate on you in a way that is, you are gorgeous in that state, Because that's at the same time. All right. So there's always a slight like caveat and aspects of things. I also want what is most attractive to me and you is healthy.
Yeah.
I've never been one of like hey, I need you to modify this or that about you, but I've always desired for you to just take good care of your health.
So you have to do your part in your mind to hold your thoughts captive and to create this standard of beauty.
Yeah.
While at the same time, like we can be, supporting each other in the wanting to have a healthy lifestyle. And, I prayed for you for years that you would find some like drive to, do something physically because for you, it's just to be healthy.
Yeah.
And it stopped. I used to nag you about it, and then I stopped nagging you, and I just prayed that God would give you that desire. Now look at you. Thank you, Lord.
But I think, all right, so there's two sides to just talking about this one pillar. I do think that there's two sides of this. Number one, it's a push and a pull. And on the pull side, it's, hey, I want to make sure that I take my thoughts captive, and every attribute about you is gorgeous, and that's the thing I love about you. But at the same time, so that's me and the energy I put towards you. But then at the same time, my responsibility is to do everything I can to put myself in the most healthy position for you, because I actually do have a desire to make it so that it is always more attractive knowing how human behavior works. I know you're going to be more attracted to me if I am doing what I can physically to take good care of myself, so I think that just in general, this one pillar in terms of the physical side of it, it's important to make sure.
This is a touchy one. It's a touchy one.
Am I stepping on toes?
No, I mean, because on one hand, you're saying like, let's say this is you towards me. You're to say, I love you the way you are, and you're the new definition of beauty. Yeah. And then I could be in the stance of, he should love me the way that I am, and I don't need to do anything at all, and I don't need to take care of myself.
Yeah. And I think that you do all things through the lens of what the Bible says.
Yeah.
And the Bible says that's not the right biblical stance.
Yeah. What is the right biblical stance?
The biblical stance is that our body is the temple of the Lord, and we are to treat our bodies with as much intentional care as possible.
Yeah.
And we should be striving towards that. And I should be encouraging you towards that. And you should be encouraging me towards that.
Yeah.
And we should be doing it with the interest of how do we best have the organism of our marriage progressed forward.
Yeah.
If one or both of us are physically not healthy, I don't think that's conducive to a good marriage. I don't think that's conducive to a good lifestyle. And there was actually a hot take that I had that I'm going to touch on now, and I think I'll want to hit more on later. My mentality lately has been, in terms of who I want to be as a dad, I want to be the man that I wish my dad, all of the attributes of who I wish my dad was to me.
Yeah.
And I, just on this one, and I want to go into that another time and talk more in detail about it. But just if I look at it from that one perspective, I wish my dad would have trained me in the gym when I was young. I wish that he would have taken good care of himself and showed me what like good nutrition looked like himself, and then showed me. And now those are the things that I'm aspiring to do for our kids so that they can watch me, and then I can show them, hey, this is what good nutrition looks like. This is what good health looks like. And this is how a healthy, like physical relationship looks like with you and your spouse.
Yeah.
You should take good care of yourself. You should encourage them to take good care of themselves, and things go really well for you. They get to see the benefits of you and I taking good care of ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and because we are in good health, or we at least try to be, we get to have more fun together because our health isn't holding us back.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Especially as I'm now getting older. Like I'm 42, and like as
the age, you're so old.
I'm just saying things start to fall off.
I know. Fall off? What's falling off?
This thing's not literally, I was going to say, it's not finished. My finger fell off, or no, things
My teeth are falling out.
No, like you're driving a car and things fall off the car kind of thing. Like you bump, like the nuts and bolts kind of not working.
Don't let your nuts fall off either, or your bolts.
I love how you call me out every. I make the smallest little analogy mistake.
We're just keeping it fun over here. It's the only way I contribute.
So I think that's one aspect of the physical side of your relationship that you should be. And then, all right, so then before marriage, this doesn't necessarily apply, but I think the physical aspect is important. Obviously, in your marriage, you should have a physical relationship. We've done a whole podcast on that aspect of it, and I think we can probably do even more of them later, but for sake of moving on to the other attributes, I think we're good on physical one. Yeah.
Okay. Should we go into friendship?
Yeah. So, all right. So this is an interesting one. All right. I like this. I like how we're looking at it from the perspective of before married, because we can talk to some people who are like, hey, what do I look for in my spouse? We can look at this from the perspective of before marriage and after marriage, right? So to the unmarried people, in terms of friendship, this is an important one, right? You want to try and find somebody that you can maximize the things that you have in common, or you find to do the things you like to do that are fun together.
Yeah. That you have fun with them, because this is, I think, especially for the beginning, the dating stage, this is one that, can get kind of blinded. Well, I think the other three can get kind of blinded and pushed to the side. If the physical is really strong, you can put that as your number one and be like, oh, she's just the hottest chick ever. Like, or I'm so attracted to him.
Absolutely.
And all the other stuff is like, fine. It's fine.
Yeah, the other things are fine. But I'm very like naturally.
Yeah.
But I think that's the reason why that's such a trap, the physical one, is because that it's when you're younger, you're so hormonally charged, and then you allow an overemphasis on the hormonal aspect to be applied to the physical aspect of how you're attracted to the person, and then you have an overemphasis, or you over-index the physical traits, and you under index, or kind of like, those things aren't all that important, just because your lack of maturity and the drive and, the chemicals that are in you just say, this is really important,
So the friendship aspect is, it's not necessarily having to have all the same interests, but that you have fun together.
Yes.
Do you laugh together? Do you, get along, that you actually want to hang out?
Yeah.
If there was no physical side, would you want to be around that person?
Yeah, exactly. If there's a Venn diagram of my interests and the things that I like to do to have fun, and like a circle of the things that you like to do and that we do together that are us having fun, you want to try and have as much overlap on those two circles as possible, because afterwards it becomes now we can talk about that aspect of it. Mm-hmm. What do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do if you just don't really do much stuff to have fun together when you're married?
I mean, we've talked about this in other podcasts, but this is where the intentionality comes in again, of sitting down. What are your interests? What are my interests? What can I do to die to myself to pick up your interests?
Yeah, we've talked
Can
about
I come
this.
alongside you? And, if you like watching F1 and that's something, and you say, hey, Ash, like, I would really love to watch F1 with you.
Yeah, just come and sit next to me.
Yeah, come and sit next to me.
Or football, right? Like, I really like football. Will you just come and sit and watch football with me?
Dino hates football.
Right? I don't like football.
But that's one of those things. And it's not every single thing we have to do, but it also could be. Like, why can't I just come sit beside you and watch F1 if it means that much to you? That doesn't mean that I have to love it as much, but I love you more.
But I think that even that is the goal. The goal would be, hey, what things can I just be intentional about trying to find an interest in you? And maybe it's not like my natural instinct of like, I love football, but I can get into football.
I think you've done that so well. That's been a discipline for you that you've had to be really intentional about, and just with life. Because when we first got married, Dino was the no guy. Mm-hmm. And I am the live life to the fullest. It's let's adventure, let's experience things, let's do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And you realize that was living like that, going to searching out a bakery and eating a pastry and coming alongside me, even though the pastry hurts your stomach or you don't like it, you realize that that's important to me. Yeah. So you go out of your way to make those things happen.
And I think it's the next step even beyond that. I try and actually find love in the thing. You love to travel around for little snacks. I enjoy doing this now.
Yeah.
It's not my natural inclination to be like, let's go do this. But I've wanted to do that, and I've had a desire for that. And a part of it is just me going before the Lord and saying, Lord, I want you to make me and her more overlapped in this. Yeah. So what are the things that you can show me that I could potentially have less interest in to give room for her? And what are the areas that can you please just help me to have a desire to be more interested in, because they're interests of hers. She is my flesh, one flesh. Yeah. I want to have a desire to do the things that are important and enjoyable for you, and that we can find compromise in. Right. And if you like riding bikes and I hate it, I should be just, hey, when we're riding bikes, this is fun. This is great. I'm enjoying this. Yeah. Yeah. And ask God to change your heart. You can be changed through Christ, through the Holy Spirit. He will change you.
If you allow him to change you.
Because it's happened in me.
Totally. Totally. And I think on a deeper level with friendship, that comes, there's an intimate part of that friendship too that comes that when you have trust with somebody. You think about like a really close friend, you trust them, you can be vulnerable with them. They're the person that you want to go to talk to.
100%.
You know, so these are the things that we have to build up in each other and be intentional about and creating that environment for the friendship to grow.
Yep. And now you're getting to like the crux of this whole four-legged stool that I was talking about, because you're basically saying, hey, when you have strength here, then things just generally are more stable. All the things are more stable, right? And then
that overflow of the friendship is going to definitely overflow into the physical and sexual
100%.
Side of things too. If we have a great friend relationship and I trust you completely and it can be totally vulnerable with you, then I can be vulnerable with you physically.
100%. So, I mean, you have to kind of look at it, not from the status of what can I get out of this for me, but what can we get out of this if we were to cultivate in this more? And there's a desire that I have that's maybe not in one of these quadrants over here, but it's, if I invest in parts of the things that are interest of you, then yes, it'll all kind of overflow. Is that what you're kind of getting at? Yeah. I probably said it worse than you just.
You did great. You did great.
I'm like, let me reiterate that in a much worse way.
Well, now since we're on friendship, I think that, you know, this deeper part then also now goes into the intellectual.
I agree.
Because this is what you and I are doing right now. This is what we try to encourage. I think a lot of the stuff we encourage on here is the communication, the dreaming together, the talking together, the listening to the other person, just having that communication. That would be the intellect level, right?
Yeah, I think that this right here is us intellectually going back and forth over concepts.
Right.
So this is a great example right now of the podcast of you and me just finding a topic where we can challenge each other and strain different parts of the way that we think and challenge each other in how we think.
Right.
And I think that's really important. I think, all right, so let's talk about this before marriage aspect of this too, because I remember one of my buddies forever ago was complaining to me. This was very, very early in his marriage. It was maybe a year or two in his marriage. He was complaining to me that he was expressing regret. Again, very early. I wasn't even married to you at the time, but he was saying, man, I really regret getting married to her because she's dumb. Like that, and I shut him down right then and there. I was like, dude, you can't think that way. You can never you're verbalizing to me things that your mind has been dwelling on. And I didn't know even the things I know now, but I was like, I would not allow yourself to go down that road mentally. That's not a great idea, but he was lamenting it. And it made me at the time be very thoughtful about the fact that, hey, in my spouse, I want to make sure that I'm actually picking somebody that I can intellectually or is somewhat generally on my level so that we can converse about things. I can be challenged and have different thoughts provoked and have them push my brain, you know?
Totally. But I think that when I think of intellect, I think of somebody being smart.
Yeah.
And I'm not book smart.
No, but look, I think you're very intelligent. These types of conversations, you challenge me all the time.
Right, so I think it's just good to clarify that it's not like everybody has to have the same exact intellect as you.
Totally.
I think that it can there's different levels and variations of it.
So this is great. This is great.
But can they overlap?
So this goes in, I think what you've pivoted to a good topic now is, okay, we talked about looking at trying to find somebody that has as much intellectual is on a similar intellectual level than you before you get married, but what do you do after you get married?
But I think just explaining intellect is important.
Yeah.
Can we have a conversation together?
Yeah.
Like simply.
But what if you can't? What if you're married and us intellectually we're on very different intellectual levels?
Mm-hmm.
What I was going to get at there is that I still think that there is an opportunity. There's always opportunity to cultivate all four of these pillars. And that's why I feel like these are not immutable characteristics in your relationship. And you should not be critical of, well, that person's just dumb and we have no intellectual. That's giving up.
I think you and I have gotten way more intellectually connected and deeper the longer we've been married because we have put intention into the friendship. We put intention into our marriage, and the intention has caused us to have more conversation, more communication.
I think that
I think that
there's intellect. There's areas in your brain that you are intellectually superior to me at, and vice versa. And you have been patient with me on the areas that I'm not as smart as you on, and you wanted to train me up in. And we just eventually iron sharpens iron, and you help me to grow and have interest in that area so that I can, man, I never thought about that thing that you're thinking about.
Would you say it's just a mindset of being open?
I think so. I think that everybody's
open to grow, open to listen.
Everybody's going to have a natural IQ, and but that doesn't matter. Once you're married, if one of our IQs is significantly higher than the other, you can still bring the other person along or find commonality in things that you can intellectually be challenged on.
Yeah.
So for example, say you are very, very talented in artistic ways, and I'm not. And I can't actually engage with you intellectually on the ways that you are talented, but that doesn't give me the excuse to say, I don't care, pick the blue one, right? I need to actually engage with you. Help me understand what you see and why you're doing this.
Right.
I can't just disengage on an intellectual level just because I don't have an interest in it or I'm very skilled in it.
Right. And the same for me, when you start talking with like work stuff and code, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I probably would never understand, but
you're sweet and you
trying
engage,
to have conversation. But
Why
the
do
point
you like
with that is yes, we're trying to engage with each other in the things we don't understand.
Yeah.
But then there are areas where we do understand and we lead heavy into those.
Agreed. And I think there's one intellectual level that actually moves into our next topic here that I think is incredibly beneficial, and that is to be intellectually conversing over the things of the Lord.
That is one thing that we can all agree that we can all have the same.
Bingo. You always have it. I'm pending both are actually saved and right. But let's run under that assumption right now that we're talking to a Christian couple that both actually know the Lord and love the Lord. It's an amazing opportunity just to be able to read your Bibles. This is something you and I are very much going hard on right now. We both read our Bibles. We both then spend a good amount of time getting deeper into the Word of God by reading commentaries and trying to intellectually flexing on things while trying to hear from the Lord and what He's speaking to our hearts.
Yeah.
But then you and I converse back and forth intellectually about those topics.
Yeah.
Some things you actually exposit significantly more out of the commentary, and you're teaching me, and I'm like, wow, that's incredible. I didn't get that. I didn't see that. I didn't read that in the commentary, and now I feel stupid that I thought about that in the incorrect way previously, right? You challenge me and you intellectually help me to grow in that area, and vice versa. There's certain things that you're uncertain of, and then you can come and converse and ask me about things, and I can be like, oh, it's this.
Yeah. We have to have humility in that to
100%.
know that we don't know everything and that we want to learn.
Yeah.
I think that's the stance with all of these things, having humility and that we are going to have some that are going to be a little bit weaker than others individually, but having humility and knowing, hey, I want these things and I want to be intentional about these things. So what are the things I need to do to get there?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that this last one, the spiritual one, I'm glad that we hit it last, and I'm glad that it had a nice segue from the intellect, but I also think that it's by far the most important.
Absolutely.
By far. And it was actually kind of cool. I was talking with a buddy who around these types of things, and he expressed to me, hey, right now I just really I really have a desire to be more into my wife. Like right now it's just kind of, I'm married, and I love her, but I really want like passion. I see what you guys have and I want more of that type of thing. And I started to go through some of these things on what areas, and the spiritual aspect of it for him was something that was they were naturally inclined towards. And I'm like, well, how much are you now if you have a button that feeds into in the machinery of your marriage, how often are you pushing that button? And my response, the answer back was not very often. And I'm like, dude, one of the areas that you are the most attracted to in your spouse right now, mash that button as hard as you can. It'll overflow into all the other areas.
And by mashing the button, you mean like together?
I'm saying invest into that attribute. If it's a natural strength in your marriage that you are spiritually inclined towards one another, and you can grow in that is an amazing foundation. It'll trickle over into all the other things.
Yeah.
If you and I are spiritually aligned and attracted to one another, and we invest time into that, then we can also then get into the intellectual aspect of it, because we can go back and forth and talk about the spiritual aspect in an intellectual level, right? And then that'll overflow more into our friendship and our relationship, because we'll be spending more time together conversing and praying and talking about things.
Totally.
Right? And that then ultimately, this is the really cool one, is that if you find the other person attractive on a friendship level, they end up becoming more visually attractive, right? And if you're attracted to them at a spiritual level, they become more physically attractive.
Oh, yeah.
So all these things they
feed each other.
They do. There's like a symbiosis between all the different attributes. But I really think the crux of it all starts at your spiritual relationship.
Totally. I would say for sure in the last few months since we've been reading together, and I can see God working in both of us, and especially you, the overflow of that, I see it in how you're parenting. I see it how we're conversing. I see it in your heart posture towards the decisions we're making. And then it also, I'm like, ooh, it's so attractive. It really is. And it's attractive on a friend level. And I want to talk with you more and I want to be around you more.
I know.
And then it's also attractive like on a physical level.
Yep.
And I'm like, you're really hot.
I know.
Like this is very attractive.
It's been very cool. I never thought that
I already was attracted to you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not mad at this whole situation. I'm not. I just want, and this is why I'm going to go back to what we've been saying all year long. Read your Bible with your spouse. Make this an intentional aspect of your marriage. Like you will get such good dividends out of this.
Yeah. But I keep going back to the thing this last week that I was talking about in the group on Friday when we meet with the Bible study. And it's like, yes, reading is one thing. Seeking the Lord is one thing, but seeking his face is a different thing. And so while we're reading,
Can you unpack what seeking his face is?
Yeah. So while we're reading, it's not just okay, I have this desire to read more. I'm going to read. That's just an action, like an outward
I'm going to be
action.
disciplined in reading my Bible. Therefore, I'm going to set my alarm. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to read the words.
It's a heart posture of having yourself emptied, having the desire to be emptied and to feel uncomfortable, to have the humility to say, I don't know everything and I need you to fill me, Lord. Seeking his face is seeking after him more intimately. It's looking at somebody's face and knowing them, not just seeking you. And I see you in a crowd. I'm now up close and personal with you and I'm like memorizing your face and knowing who you are. Yeah.
For me, it's been another way of saying the same thing is, how do I then respond, Lord? As I'm reading, how do you want me to respond to what it is that I'm seeing here?
The action.
Yeah, because I don't want to continue to just read this and not be impactful in my life. I'm reading it with the intent of getting something that can actually change who I am, because I desire to no longer be who I am. I desire to be more like who you want me to be like.
The more we're reading about it, we're seeing like Britt was saying, we should be seeing the attributes of Jesus and stop looking at ourselves and looking at ourselves while we're reading.
All right, so this has been fun. I want to go in opposite order on this one. So I feel like in your marriage, you should obviously be prioritizing first your spiritual walk and your spiritual relationship with your spouse. I feel like that's going to give you huge dividends and it'll overflow into all the other things. Then from there, you should be investing in your friendship, your physical, your attributes, your physical, the physical side of your marriage and the intellectual side of your marriage, right?
Yeah. And these are all things that, like you said, are immutable.
Not immutable. Dang it. They are mutable, meaning they can be changed. To be immutable means they will not change.
And see, this is where the book smarts come in.
Yeah. To mutate something means to change it. Okay. Yeah. So but these are all attributes that absolutely can be impacted. Some people are going to have a natural inclination or an easier, like a downhill kind of ride. Wow, this is super easy because we naturally fit into this, and certain things are going to be harder. But I think that just because things are hard doesn't mean they're not worth doing, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to get insanely good benefits out of it if you invest in it. All this comes down to is you can get into a much better marital scenario if you start to really be intentional and invest into each one of these areas.
Yeah.
So I'll save this one.
All right. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. We'll see you guys next week.